This is what we are. We are.
No one knows what does not yet exist. As creating futures shape our lives, future optimism is in the end of the day why it is worth living. A sustainable society can only arise from visions that look beyond today. That is why an Nextopian vision is important. I see a youth generation continuously repeating itself, reminiscing the past. A world lacking the means of future optimistic views. When the will to predict has decreased and when the end of the story is already quite reasonable, why should we be visionaries of the future? Nostalgia is poison. But nostalgia is comfortable. Bias in our brains makes us believe that the past was better than the present. We have been forced into this retro notion, seen in creative fields such as fashion, design, photography, and music. Nostalgia has, for example, become a strategy for mass consumption. Never before has youth, for example, bought as much vinyl or analog cameras. Most of the cultural products that we consume refer to the 70s, 80s, or 90s. But it goes deeper. Many political issues exist today because of lack of future optimism, contrary to prospective mindsets. Conventional stereotypes, for example. In 2008, we were introduced to President Obama's narrative of forward and hope, as opposed to President Trump's 2017 narratives of make America great again. Better should not belong to the past, but to the future. Sustainable politics and societies can only arise from visions that look beyond today. Escape from nostalgia. Our utopias have been overruled and overwhelmed by our anxiety about the next. Inventing brand new futures is time-consuming, whereas creative incubation time is lacking. Rapidity is dictated, caused by the perpetual pressure from society and the industries. More and more, we hear that there is no longer a future, that the future is lost on us. We are facing big ecological, political, and economical world crises at the moment. Climate change is a bigger issue than we can possibly comprehend. Our political situation has not been as unstable as now since the First World War. Tensions around the world have never been this problematic. The global economic crisis is not yet solved, and the global digital revolution makes us stop thinking and planning long-term. This sounds pretty massive, doesn't it? Brutal, negative, fearsome, catastrophic. All these premises makes us cynical. Imagining the future seems useless as the present is so perplexed. But the future does not even depend on where we are now. Definitely not, rather the opposite. It is not the best possible world, but it could become it. A paradigm shift is needed, a radical change. The future becomes the chance for rationally improving. The future being non-predictable is a source to human freedom. A change in the direction of a better future is always possible. Future is time's love child. The topic of future refers to the future as a timeless destination, like what will happen in the future, as the traditional perception of future as a forecast. Or we can understand it as a very powerful tool and process that it is. As a technique, it's an exercise of imagination to which we can resort to when the conceptual and material devices we have inherited from the past have reached the end of their life cycle. The difference is practically predicting versus inventing. Out of these two, predicting is the dominating narrative when speaking about or referring to future today. We also tend to talk about futures as, for example, the future is technology. Let's rather see futures as inclusive and multiple possibilities, and as that we can decide them. I therefore invite you to think of the future as plural. Us kids are the future. We have qualities and traits that makes us great accidental inventors, partly because we lack world experience and never face any adult limitations or fears. We are imaginative. We have got the ability to look at the world and see what others cannot see. Utopias are seen as a means to imagine futures when radically changing and breaking rules. This makes us youth so equipped to actively invent futures. We need to encourage critical thinking in the direction of Nextopia. Instead of continuously looking back and revisiting retro vibes, we need to actively invent and envision our brand new preferred futures. We need to embrace long-term futures and empower young people and their fresh ideas. New generations must learn to transform, improve, and recycle the existing. The construction of the vision is the most important asset in our time, and it is rare. We need new interpretive schemes, new perspectives, a wider and closer vision. What is desirable is a credible and stable future. This is urgent. Nextopia is more than a discipline. It is a practice and a method, a tour of understanding rather than a path to knowledge. It is a dynamic process with unpredictable results, but it is where to invest ideas and projects. Salut Nextopia.
In randomness, we trust.